Hey, welcome back to another Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. This is episode 543 of the Ping Pong Flix Show. Let's get to this little update from the release, the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. Jared Leto actually liked a tweet in regards to release the Ayer cut. Lord Yamcha said this: I want Jared Leto to know this. I hope he comes back as the Joker and proves people, haters, wrong about his performance. I also hope he plays the Joker at least, say, 2 or 3 more times, especially how like Suicide Squad should have been hashtag release the Ayer cut. Jared Leto like this. He appreciates it, and I really truly I'm glad he does, and of course, I mean, a lot of his stuff was cut out, right? He said he had filmed so much. He was fighting for us to see that, and we never got to see it because of studio intervention. But now it's a new day, it's a new light, that it prompts even David Ayer to come out after Zack Snyder was able to get his Justice League announced on HBO Max. It just seems like a bright new day for David Ayer and his crew. David Ayer retweeted this, saying that Jarwood was pretty mistreated during this. No one has seen his performance. It was ripped out of the movie. And I would love to see that. And I enjoyed Suicide Squad. I enjoyed Jared Leto as Joker. And I want to see what David Ayer really had in mind for Jared Leto. His total, full arc in Suicide Squad. I want to see that, especially that first trailer that David Ayer had put out at Comic-Con. That first trailer was beautiful and sad, just like he said it was, and it was terrific. It got me excited for Suicide Squad. Then it turned into more of a comedic thing. Ultimately, it was still entertaining. I still enjoyed it, but I would really love to see what David Ayer had in mind for his Suicide Squad. So I hope we really get this. We're on a pause with the campaign right now. I think the release, the Ayer Cut group is going to restart that campaign next week. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Snyder Cut, and this is really cool. Congratulations, Sean O'Connell. He finally got to interview Zack Snyder. He put this out: I interviewed Zack Snyder for the book. We dug into him leaving the production in 2017. He gave me a heartfelt, surprising reasons. He opened up about an alternate timeline where he stayed and fought for his jail and why it didn't happen. Can't wait to share. Release the Snyder Cut. This is also the tip of the iceberg of all things we discussed. Release the Snyder Cut. Give this account a follow. You'll want to know when this book drops. So congratulations, Sean O'Connell, for finally nailing Zack Snyder's interview. It must be a field day. He had a book ready to go with I asked him, can you edit that? And he said yes, and good thing he could, because it was announced. So that was a beautiful ending to the book, but it still needed that little touch, that one little touch, and that was Zack Snyder himself. He got to interview Zack Snyder, of course, before I edit that book. I don't know if he'll still keep that release date for his book next year, but we'll have to wait and see. I cannot wait to read this book. Sean O'Connell, congratulations to do. I'm really looking forward to reading this book. I don't read much books nowadays, but I'm ready to read this one. The Verge had something out today, and it is an interesting a little interview with the head of HBO Max, right? The gentleman's name is Tony Goncalves. I hope I got the name right. If I didn't, I totally apologize. But the head of HBO Max on launching without Roku, adding 4K HDR, and the Snyder Cut. This is an interview with AT&T's Tony Goncalves on The Verge Coast, and this interview is provided by Julia Alexander, who could probably not be so pushy or rude, but that's okay. These are journalists after all, and not all journalists are nicer about things or not as pushy. So here we go. I'm gonna head over or down. There's a lot of things in here that you can. I'm gonna put this link article in the description below where you can read about HBO Max, about how it launched. Not too many details, and she's really pushing for details, but you can't give her any. But I want to go down to the part about the Snyder Cut because, after all, this is about the Snyder Cut. This is about DC content. All right. So after talking about how they really want to trying to find ways to probably get it on Roku, and right now it's kind of difficult. There's some things going on, but they're waiting to expand on that. But the interviewer asked, are you just going to hold out until the Snyder Cut hits and then an army of DC fans are like, I want this on my Roku, and they have to cave? Because that's what happened with Fox and the Super Bowl. At some point, Fox just had to cave and give some Roku subscribers the Super Bowl. Are you saying eventually that the demand is going to be so high that Roku is just going to have to cave? And he replied back, I don't know if caving is actually the way to think about it. I think the consumer wins at the end of the day, and I think we've put together a product offering that has multiple Snyder cuts. It's got Julia laughs. Is that a positive or a negative that there's multiple Snyder cuts? And he replies, the reference to the Snyder Cut is that it's a passionate fandom. There's a passionate fandom around Friends. There's a passionate fandom around Harry Potter. There's a passionate fandom around, you name it, on that platform. The DC library. There's a passionate fandom around Crunchyroll. Passionate fandom around Studio Ghibli. This part gets a little irritating. Julia Alexander says, there is a difference, though, between the fandom around the Snyder Cut, which has targeted a lot of directors who have worked with Warner Brothers, has targeted groups on Twitter. And although there's positives of that fandom, there are a lot of overwhelming negatives, which many smart critics have written about. There's a difference between the fandom and a Friends or Harry Potter fandom, which hasn't necessarily gone out of their way for 3 years to demand certain things in the kind of way that the Snyder Cut fandom has. And I wonder if you worry at all about the precedent that sets, because right after that came out, we're going to get an Ayer cut for Suicide Squad, a David Ayer cut. And I generally wonder if that was something that Warner Media took into consideration. What is the precedent that this sets? This is the reply. This is the reply the AT&T CEO gave. Look, definitely not a precedent. And you're right. There's different types of fandoms. There's the fandom you just described, and there's other fandoms. My reference to the fandoms is the fact that we're in a space where consumers are loud. Consumers guide, and we absolutely have to listen as an industry. I had a boss that once said, industry and consumers aren't always aligned, but consumers do tend to win. It's a fine balance, and I think when it comes to video, when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to content, consumers have never had more choice, and they've never had more of a voice. But that doesn't mean that we will go and invest our dollars in every single fandom that exists. But I think the reference to the Snyder Cut and the Friends fandom is the fact that consumers are speaking, and we have to listen. It doesn't mean that we're going to go redo every movie ever made, but I think that we definitely have to have our ear to the ground, and I think we do. I just go back to look at the buzz that the Harry Potter library brought us yesterday. It was a wonderful surprise and delight. It's because consumers are passionate about these franchises. So you can go ahead and read about the entire thing, or you can listen to it, the actual interview, I think, up here within the link of this article in any case. But I like what he says there. I like what he says, how he replied back to that really snarky interviewer. And she's right. I mean, there were a lot of negatives. There were a lot of negatives with the Snyder Cut as well, but there are a lot of positives as well, a lot of positive voices as well. And I think the persistence and the consistency of that voice, 3 years, finally kind of showed AT&T that there is a market for it. There is a consumer out there that wants this Snyder Cut. There's a consumer out there, a consumer that is, filled with a fandom that exists, that is willing to spend money, willing to go out of their way to provide them right? To provide them with the dollar amount, dollar bills, and to willing to subscribe to them in order to get the Snyder Cut. And that, I believe, is the thing I've been talking about. I mean, they are business. It comes down to business. Yes, artistic creative integrities and all that withstanding. What really got their attention was the business potential of it, and I really liked how he responded to them that way. This is like the precedent. This is not fan entitlement. This is justice for a director. At the same time, you guys could reap the rewards of gaining more subscribers, gaining more monies, getting more views. How could you say no to that, regardless of whatever egos in the thing? Money is money. Business is business. You don't say no to a demanding consumer that is very loud, that is willing to spend the dollars, that is willing to spend their time on your platform. What do? Do you ignore them? Or you try to work something out and give them what they want? Because they're very loud and they're very much your customers. So I love this interview. Go and check it out. Mind some of the questions in here and the pushiness of some of them, but that's okay. They're doing their jobs as The Verge, and they're trying to get every little thing they can get out from AT&T's Tony Gonsalves. So let's move on to the next thing. Now, this is kind of like you can kind of say this is kind of like added thing to Film Junkie's own video. He talked about it today, and it was about Zack Snyder's Justice League chapters. Now, I want to say that he did put this idea out about having Zack Snyder's Justice League be in an episodic segment back in November 9 of 2019. Last year, right? Last year. He put this poll out. Why did he put this poll out? I already told you. He has a source in Zack's camp, and he knew about this ahead of time. I knew about this ahead of time because he told me, and Colbert and Garza as well. So he knew about this ahead of time. He was just trying to gauge how would we think about that. What do you think? How would you think about that? Of course, at that time, whole thing, of course, 90%. But I want to kind of reiterate something here that this idea wasn't really Film Junkie's on. It wasn't Colbert's. It wasn't Garza. It wasn't even mine. It was something that Snyder wanted, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But imagine going on HBO Max and seeing this Zack Snyder's Justice League put out like that, and I gotta see, because when you look at this, it's just kind of like Westworld right now. When I'm finishing up, I'm going through season 3 now. But imagine this is episode 1, 2, 3. I don't think there's gonna be the names on there, but just to look at that, just imagine popping it in and you get to watch it like that, and it goes in chapters. Of course, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be a movie later on. I fully believe it's going to be a movie later on, depending if this is going to come, the format is going to come out first or after or not at all. But just what I want to really put to bed, this idea of it being episodic in nature. It came from Zack Snyder himself. Okay, this is the Hollywood Reporter, which a lot of people glossed over because there were so many things, so many reports that came out. But the Hollywood Reporter had the most detailed amount of information about Zack Snyder's Justice League in this. This is the most detailed amount because this is the one I believe Zack Snyder decided to talk to and actually give comment on and actually give perspective on to the Hollywood Reporter themselves. And you can go ahead and read a lot of this. They go into detail about the screening, what the closer amount it's going to take, and of course, Greenblatt already said that's going to be over $30 million. He wishes it was only $30 million, but it's probably going to be over like 60 plus. But in any case, I want to go down to where a part I highlighted where even Film Junkie Dave was trying to find it, and I watched it. I wish I was on live so I can scream at him through the chat. It's like it's over here, this highlight part, but I'll call this like an added up thing to his video if you want to go and check it out later on. But this is the part he was looking for, the part that I tweeted out. At his presentation after the screening, Snyder outlined ideas for not just releasing the cut, but the concept of episodes and cliffhangers. This is the little sentence that people did not read, did not even see this. While people are fighting each other over line, whether or not Zack Snyder's Justice League should be a series or shouldn't be a series or should be a movie, yes, we can discuss if it should or should not, but will it? That will it is not up to us. It has never been up to us. It has never been up to Dave, Garza, Steven, myself. It has never been up to anybody. It has been up to Snyder. It has been up to Zack Snyder this whole time. But what we're discussing here is we're trying to discuss the idea of it. How would that work? How would that be like? How would it be like to, break it up into different episodes? Or in this case, Dave, I have actually heard it will be called chapters. And I like the sound of that. I mean, imagine, when comparing to, say, I'm going to watch episode 1. Oh, okay, great. But I want to watch chapter 1. The word chapter, it just sounds much more epic. It sounds much more mythic, like Lord of the Rings, or like Stranger Things. Stranger Things, they call it that, chapter 1, chapter 2. It just sounds much more like a tome, a legendary tome that we're browsing through and we're reading it with our visually, with our ears and everything, and just watching it unfold on screen. A tale, a magnificent tale of a grandiose, a superhero comic book legend that's called Zack Snyder's Justice League. To be called chapters, it just makes it much more engaging. It just makes it much more legendary, much more fabled, than just episodes, right? But in the nature of things, it is episodes. We're just calling it in much more legendary detail, and I hope it's called chapters. That's if it's coming out this way. Now, this is just being discussed. These outline, Zack Snyder himself outlined ideas for not just releasing a cut, but the concept of it, the concept of that, chapters with cliffhangers, kind of like when you watch Stranger Things, when you watch Westworld, right? Seasons like this. So I like this idea because it could really actually make it a lot more, possibly, a lot more effective. And they kind of talk about this as well, almost alluding to more character development, right? So it says, while the cut will contain many elements Snyder has teased over time, yes, expect Darkseid, the duo, Debbie and Zack, also relish adding a fair amount of character development. What's so lovely about this, and we're assuming maybe this series or things, is that we get to explore these characters in ways that you're not able to in a shorter theatrical version. So, and that's it. And there's a lot of positives in terms of this. Whether you, and I think that when we're talking about TV shows, we're not saying Zack Snyder's Justice League is going to be a sitcom. Fuck no. It's not a sitcom. We won't have people applauding in the background. I think our idea of a TV show, the production value of a TV show has just escaped us for a moment. When you're saying episodic and film. Film has all that production value and stuff. I agree. Totally agree. But so does some series. Some series, like Stranger Things, like Game of Thrones, like Westworld. Look at that and tell me you don't see an awesome, incredible production value on that rivals motion pictures, that rivals films that you watch in theaters, maybe even better than a lot of the movies that are out there in the theaters, right? Look at Mandalorian. Look at that. Just look at the quality that these studios can really do now with episodic nature. But with the added benefit of it's going to be longer. You're getting more money for your buck. Who would say no to more Zack Snyder's Justice League? More content. More. How would you say no to more? So that really confused me for that amount. But I wanted to just hit home right now that this whole concept of a episodic nature, this whole idea that it's possibly going to be an episodic nature, that this idea, and I think maybe in this kind of world, you gave us too much credit for being the ones to actually getting Zack Snyder to do this. Oh no, Zack Snyder can do whatever the fuck he wants. He is Zack fucking Snyder, okay? He can do whatever he wants. And if he himself, at the presentation of a screening that is ranging from Warner Brothers, Toby Emmerich, Karen and Blackwood, Walter Hamada, Kevin Riley, Sarah Aubrey, Sandra Dewey, and DC's Jim fucking Lee, and he's telling them, he's outlined ideas for not just releasing the cut, but the concept of episodes and cliffhangers, then by God, you do whatever you need to do to show your cut, and we can't really complain about it, right? We cannot complain about it, because isn't this what Zack wants? Isn't this what we're supposed to be fighting for? Like I said, I don't know if it's going to come on episodic, but the idea of episodic nature did not come from us. It did not come from us. It came from Zack Snyder, and there you have it right there. But no better way. Mick D had put this out. Frank the Fandom is putting out again. No matter what we see next year, it will be 100% fucking approved by Zack without compromise to his vision. Keep calm and trust Zack Snyder. Release the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League. All right, guys. I think that's enough for today. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.